Today is one of those challenging days because today we're going to be talking about blind spots. It is a interesting subject matter, but I'll get into that just a little bit later. One couple housekeeping things is if you can silence your phone, because we're going to get deep today. We're going to have some really cool conversations, and it's kind of awkward when somebody is looking at their phone, or if you have to jump up, jump out, and just don't stay at the table. So just keep that in mind. We do not have a breakfast sponsor today. So if anybody wants to sponsor in the future, just let me know. I'll be happy to talk to you. Breakfast sponsors generally get to speak for a few minutes, promote whatever their business is, and I promote it throughout the month with all the emails that I send as well. So feel free to let me know if you're interested in sponsoring moving forward. With that said, I want to go ahead and ask Jordan Smith to come on up. If you all would do me a favor, everyone at the table, hold up your flyer with Banneker Elementary School on the front. This is going to be our Tree of Life partnership for the fall, and I want Jordan to go ahead and say a few words about that. Here, hold this too.
Ready. It's always funny to me. Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for participating in ways to give back and support locally. It really means a lot. I think last time we gathered, we had a special event together. We were able to raise over £3,000 of food and collect that to distribute it locally. I just want to report back and let you know over 150 families were served with those groceries. So thank you so very much. It really means a lot. The opportunity before us today is an opportunity to help bless a local school. At this time of the year, I don't know if you're aware, but a week ago, this past Saturday, over 750 individuals passed through that door in order to prepare for this upcoming school year. And we're able to bless all those children and families with backpacks and clothes and haircuts and food and different items to prepare them for the school year ahead. Sometimes, though, teachers are forgotten, and we don't want to forget the teachers, and we've got a unique opportunity here to ensure that we don't do that, and we can bless these special teachers that work so hard to help these children throughout the year. So if you're unaware, Banneker Elementary School is in the southwestern part of our county. It's a Title I school. There's few of them in the county. That means up to 40% of them, at least 40% of them qualify for free lunches, and many of the families are low-income families. So it's definitely a needy area and a unique opportunity, a unique school. But the chance now that we have is to bless the teachers directly and help them address their needs. If you don't know, it's becoming almost expected that the teachers actually buy their own supplies for the classrooms. And so what we've partnered together with Business for Life, and we're working alongside this school, we thought it'd be a really cool opportunity to help bless these teachers. So you've got this flyer in front of you. We believe that together we can help address all of their needs as a group collectively. Different from last time, it's not a competition. We feel like we can come together and take care of this need and really bless these teachers. But it's, again, a fantastic opportunity. Thank you for being a part of it. And I guess the instruction now is once you collect these items, have them sent directly to your own homes or your offices, and then next meeting, just bring those items, and then together, Tree of Life and Business for Life will distribute those items to the teachers, and then we'll report back after that. Does that sound good? Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jordan. And are you going to hang around, Jordan? So if anybody has any questions afterwards, feel free. And again, it's been a real blessing for us as a business group to actually be in community, for community, through our businesses. And I was super excited for how much food we were able to give in the spring. And that one was a little bit more cumbersome because we had teams and we stayed together, and we decided to make this a lot simpler. So it's really just, if everybody could bring something next month, that'll be a huge blessing, and you'll get a lot of rewards in heaven. So Appreciate that. Right now, we don't have a sponsor, so I asked Rich to come up, and he's got a really cool testimony from something that happened just a few months ago here at Business for Life. So I wanted him to share for just a second. Hold both.
Thank you. Yeah. So perfect dovetail from the Tree of Life starting a new initiative with Banneker, the school there. So on March 17th, session 8, it was the day that we announced the winner of the last Tree of Life food drive results, right? So that day was really important for me because if you don't know me, I have a weird testimony. I'm not going to get into my whole testimony. But at some point in my college life, I heard a voice, and that voice caused me to seek, and that seeking led me to Jesus. So that's like a short version. So I heard about BFL, came a few times, and realized that there are people here that also understand that God speaks to people. And he spoke to me when I was not a believer. And that was tough for some people. Some people think, oh, well, if you weren't saved, like how can God speak to you? But I don't know. I definitely wasn't saved. And I heard a voice that was, it knew what was going on. And so that day, I walked into this room with this feeling of, I had a specific question in my mind about my work. So I run a law firm. I'm an attorney. My dad's an attorney, and I always knew I wanted to hire somebody to be an associate, right? So I did that, and I did that with the intention of ministering to that person. I knew who it was, and I was like, God wants me to take this person under my wing, and they're like me. I'm going to minister to them through work and make them a believer, right? But guess what? It didn't quite work out that way, and I was like, this guy is not the guy. And I was like, how do I gently let someone go in a Christian way that would allow me to still minister to him and not have him hate my guts? That's a tough dilemma. So I started doing this kind of quiet firing thing where I'm like, hey, why don't you think of other career choices? Why don't I train you for a different job at a different company, at another title company that I might know people? Like I made up this whole thing where I was like, why don't I do this for you, get you a new job? And guess what? 2 days later, after I said that, I walked into my office and they're like, hey, we have a position for an entry-level attorney that we would love to have somebody. I'm like, really, God? Like that's so at my company. That's tough because I'm like, this is not going to push him away. This is going to bring him in closer. But my heart was like, I know what God wants me to do, but I don't want to do that. So I walked into this room, and lo and behold, that day, the speaker was Emily Walker, a woman who worked with John Mizrak, who wasn't a believer, and was like, I'm here giving you my testimony because through working with John and him putting up with my stuff, I'm now a believer. And I'm like, really, God? Like, this is so, like, for me, right? And so at the end of it, the part that goes, just now pray and ask God what the question is on your heart, and he's going to answer it. And I actually believe this. I know that's true. So I start with the music played, and it's like everyone's quiet. And I just ask God, I go, I know what you're doing here. I know that Emily's was here for me and other people. What do you want me to do with this job offer that I know once I present it to my associate, he's going to get it. I know for a fact that's his job. And I heard a voice go, I wrote it down, don't withhold blessings. And I was like, I don't talk like that. Like I would be like, don't give him the job. That's a mistake. And the people in this room have told me, don't throw pearls at swine. There's people here. I've asked for counsel from friends, and they were like, no offense. They were the common opinion, consensus was, don't do it. It's crazy. You're a crazy person for doing that. But guess what? God loves crazy, obedient people. So I took this, and I found this the other day under the passenger seat of my car. This was sitting there, and I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that's where that was. And I walked. The next day, I went to my associate. I said, hey, I got to tell you something. There's this job offer that's here, and if you want it, it's yours. I'll help you write your resume. I'll submit it with a glowing recommendation. And I did. He says, okay, like half-hearted, so just like nonchalant. And so I did that. He got the job within a week. And so he gets the job. It's a good paying job, and he's out of my hair, right? He goes, thank you. Finally thanks me. He goes, thank you for giving me this job. He goes, the first time you've ever thanked me in the year of working for me is when I got rid of you. The job. Okay. But I was like, I want to tell you that this job came from God. And he's like, so not a believer, right? He's like, huh. He goes, yeah, well, I've been putting good vibes into the universe. This is on a text message. And I think that's paid off. I'm like, really, dude? You had to just like take the credit, but that's what I used to do. I used to do that. And I wrote him a text. I said, I just want you to know that God has a plan for you. It's clear to me. And I just hope you see it someday. And I want you to know where all the good things in life come from. And it's from our Lord. And he was like, no comment, right? But I'm planting the seed. I'm being faithful, even though it doesn't feel great. And so when I go to work, I see this dude. And I'm like, how's this job going? And I'm waiting for that. Thank you so much. You saved me in Jesus. God's still working on him, but I'm doing my part. And thank you, John, for allowing me to ask God in this place. So ask God, he answers. Thank you.
All right. Is this all right? Got the wrong guy handling tech. Okay, that was awesome, Rich. Thank you so much. I just love it. I hear a lot of these stories coming out of here, and it's not really anything special about our group, even though you are all special. It's just really cool to see people start to cross that line, and learn something here and go ahead and apply it right away. And I really hope today you walk away from here ready to take what you learn and apply it. Because I know for me, for a lot of years, I would come to something like this, even though there's really was never anything like this, but I would go to, and I would learn something, and then I would go back to normal. And I don't want that for you. I want you to really, whatever God puts on your heart, know that he's putting it on your heart for a reason, for you to go apply it. And I'm a big proponent of teach what you learned today, because if you do, you're going to learn it even more. But if you stuff it, you're not going to, it's not going to take roots as it should. So anyway, again, thanks, Rich. That was awesome. So with that said, today's subject again is a challenging one, because it's unveiling your blind spots. And how many of us want to do that, really? Paul? All right. Steve? Well, Steve's old, so it's a lot easier for old guys, but no disrespect, Steve. But most of us don't. We don't really want to unveil that, because oftentimes we're using those blind spots as protection. And we wouldn't even call them blind spots. It's just who we think we are. How many of us say, that's just the way I am? And I would guess that 75% of the time when you say that, you're covering something up, because we're just not comfortable being what somebody else may want us to be. And the challenge for business owners, it's not even just business, but you've got team members, you've got clients, and then of course we have our family, and they all see you in a way that I would guess or guarantee that's different than how you think you see yourself. And a lot of us fall into the trap again of self-protection, because we don't even know who we are, let alone want them to know who we are. So I think the more we dig into our own identity in Christ, just like Rich did, God will show you who you are in him, and then expect you to actually live that out, both for your team, your clients, and your family, obviously. So, but it starts, I believe, with self-awareness. I remember I had a friend, when I was a young leader, I had a friend tell me when he first met me that I was a real jerk. And I was like, wow, thanks, appreciate that. But he said, you were so intense. And I'm like, I'm not intense. I'm just, back in the day, I was just shy. That's what I would tell people. I was shy. And then when I found out, instead of just shifting, I actually started using that for my benefit, because I generally didn't like people. So I would just be intense or quiet to protect myself from getting too close to people. And it took years for me to recognize that protection mechanism was not what God called me to. It really just kept me isolated. but it took a good friend to really, at that time, to have the nerve to go, you know what? Like, you got a problem. Like, you're so quiet, or you look so intense. And again, I thought I was laid back. I thought I was just, I'm just chilling out. But in fact, I was pretty intense, and I just didn't know it. And I was trying to keep people away, and I just didn't know it. So what I found over the years is, what you think the truth is generally not the truth. We do have one truth. It's called the Bible, but then we have a lot of other perceptions, and our perception of ourselves isn't always, it's actually rarely other people's perception of us. And I think we need to do a better job opening up our ears and our hearts and asking some of the hard questions about how people see us. And again, it's a fine line between people pleasing and that. And I'm not talking about people pleasing. I'm talking about self-awareness. Because if you're not self-aware, you're probably alienating people in your life, and you don't even know it, because you're just who you are. You're just being you. And I think I would love for everybody to do an audit this month of how many times you say that or think that. That's just the way I am. And I bet if you take a second to go underneath that comment and pray about it, God will show you that that's a lie. Because it's interesting how people, I've been listening to bunch of books on brain science lately, and it's so cool to see how it aligns with the gospel. But the more we say that's the way we are, the more we're creating neural pathways that the brain will say, yeah, that's the way you are. Even things like introvert, like God didn't make us introverted. We're maybe a little more comfortable being quiet, but that doesn't mean that that's what God wants us to be. And an introvert is one of those labels that allows us to be rude. I know it did. It allowed me to be rude to people because I'm introverted, so I don't want to engage. So leave me alone. But I don't believe that's how God made me. God made me to love people, to connect with people, to be in relationship. So that's what today's about. And I hope that you guys can be open and vulnerable, because this is a tough subject to share, especially with people that you don't know real well. But I did give people homework, so I was wondering if anybody had any feedback or made connections, because I know we hadn't met for 2 months, so I'll give you grace if you didn't do it. But at the same time, I hope you engaged some people and asked, was there anybody that gave you any feedback in the last month or so, or any other feedback that you had on this subject matter?
I'll tell you the truth, John, I totally forgot that you gave us homework.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute, I gotta pass the mic around. Jason, can you reattach this? We gotta make sure our Zoom people can hear us.
There are people on Zoom.
Sure, okay. That's okay.
Talk to the mic. So I can talk. It's okay. I'm good. It's here. So I'm saying I did forget, because I'm being honest and not pretending, so everybody else can at least feel good, and I'll just feel embarrassed. But somebody did give me feedback, definitely. And as a matter of fact, he walked away. He was being nice. He left the room where I was. And then he came back. Later, he told me God slapped me and said, "You go back and tell him." And he said, "You always have to be right." Well, that's the answer to your question. Yeah.
Okay. All right, how many people always have to be right? That's a kiss of death for relationships, by the way, just in case you don't know. Interesting spiritually, though, I've leaned into this because the more right I am, the more out of alignment I am with whoever I'm speaking to. And if there's nothing right about right and humility, they don't go together. And again, back to perception, like I know when I tell my wife something, I know what I told her. But for some reason, she heard something else. And I could judge her for it and poo-poo that and go, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. Or I can recognize that she heard something different. I don't know how, but I'm sure we all do this, you know? But I used to get so frustrated with her because I knew I was right. And when I'm right, there's no room for compassion. But I've really tried hard to just say, okay, you heard that, you know? And I think it's a great lesson for all of us because when we're right, we're usually out of alignment with the relationship. So, anybody else? I texted you all some questions. I'll have to pull out my phone and tell you what I said. Hold on. Somebody save me here. All right, here's some questions. Where do I get defensive? Where do you get defensive? When somebody, again, anytime you get defensive, it's generally because you're not self-aware. People don't agree with me, but I know I'm a little bit off. But like I say, whenever you're emotional, like mainly angry, there's a problem. And when you're angry and not self-aware, generally you become a victim because immediately it's somebody else's fault that you're angry. So that's one of those areas where you get defensive because you're angry, but you don't call it angry, you call it righteousness or something. You call it something else than a sin because you're angry. But and believe me, I didn't spend my life doing this, but in the last couple of years, I've really tried to audit my anger and go underneath it and go, why am I angry? Because generally there's a fear involved. I'm afraid of something and that's why I'm getting angry. But most of us don't do that kind of thing. We become a victim, and people hate when I say this because we love our victimhood. We love to stay parked in victimhood. And granted, I'm not minimizing people that have been victimized. I get it. Like there's a lot of people that have had some horrendous things done to them. I'm talking about when I get a little frustrated. Generally, it's my anger. And if I go underneath that, I realize I'm afraid of something. But that's humility, is like naming your fear. And then you start to, what I recently read that, like, if you say this phone is my anger and I leave it here, I can't see it. I can't even see it if I look down, and it owns me. It's in my heart, it's throughout my body. If I can pull that anger out and put it out here, I can actually look at it and I can dissect it in a way where I can understand what's driving it. But as long as I leave it in here and justify my anger and justify why, I'm righteous and you're wrong, it owns me, and the enemy owns me instead of, I'm not really relying on Jesus in that realm. So anyway, I know these are challenging questions that a lot of people don't ever unpack, but that's what I'm talking about. Those are the blind spots that end up driving you out of relationship. And as a leader, a lot of times, you're paying people to follow you. So I know for me, when I was younger, I didn't like, I kind of grew up with under the influence of a dictator, more of a leader. So that was my model. So I became a dictator leader, and I really didn't care about what anybody thought because I was paying them to be there. But we all know if we're going to build a really good team, you got to lead with your heart and not your righteous head. So if you're not willing to do some of this stuff, you're going to get stuck in your own, and you're not necessarily going to know why you're stuck, but mainly it's because you're not using your heart. You're just focused up here. So, Steve. Speak up.
Hi there. Well, my name's Steve Craven, and I was in business in the, excuse me, in the tire and auto repair business for 35 years. And I learned two lessons about blind spots. First one was in 1986. I hired a gentleman that I knew from church that I just assumed that he was capable of doing the job and I could trust him. And so I needed a general manager because I was expanding pretty quickly. And so I offered him a job. And his background, he was real estate and investments. So I figured, I asked him, you a good numbers guy, I guess. And he said, yes. And so I need you to keep an eye on things for me. And gradually he took on more roles, ordering tires for inventory, etc. And I was busy just really keeping my eye on my other locations. And so I come to find out in mid 1987, I got a call from my Goodyear representative who told me that we were past due. And he said, do you realize that you're $1 million past due? And no, I didn't know that. So I confronted this guy. What's going on? And he gave me some nonsense. And I asked him, why didn't you tell me this was going on? Well, I thought I could handle it myself. Well, the next day he resigned. And so I was very suspicious, obviously. And I hired a forensic accountant to come in and tear things apart. And we found out within a couple of weeks that this guy had stolen $400,000 from me. And so I confronted him, and this guy claimed to be a Christian. And you know what he told me? He said, I'll pay you back what you find. So what kind of an attitude is that? I can prove what you took. That's what you owe me. So he walked away. So eventually I was able to recover about 200,000 from him, but still left me in considerable debt. And 400 grand in 1987, that's probably worth $1 million today. So that came down to, I was blind to accountability. I should have kept tabs on what this guy was doing. I should have had weekly meetings with him to go over numbers. I just would ask him what's going on. Are we profitable, et cetera, just general stuff. But my failure to keep on top of things resulted in this guy who I trusted to turn around and just be a thief and a con man. So those of you that own businesses, you got to make sure that you're on top of things and you know the people that are working for you, and you check up on things periodically. So that's my first blind spot. The second one was around 3 or 4 years later. I was able to find a bank that helped me, and I was able to pay everything back. I paid Goodyear back, some local vendors. And I just got on my knees and I thanked the Lord. And from that point on, I pledged to him, God, I promise to you from here on out, I will tithe from what you provide for me. And I did. Up to that point, I was just kind of sporadic. And so because of that, I believe the Lord has honored me and my family. So if you own a business or if you're an employee or whatever, please focus on tithing. You determine what you can do. But you've got to take it seriously because the Lord will reward you. Bible says it. Second thing, I had an opportunity. I kind of felt like Robert E. Lee. I had an opportunity to cross the Potomac. And just like Lee, I got my butt kicked. I acquired 2 stores in Maryland, what I consider pretty cheap. And it turned out to be a disaster. If anybody here has a business in Maryland, I really feel sorry for you. I went from a business-friendly state into a state, all they wanted was my taxes and harassing. And I'm telling you, Gaithersburg harassed me almost to the point of exhaustion. And so I was able to get out of that. I lost a little bit of money, but not too much. So I retreated back across the Potomac. And the thing about this is before I went through with that transaction, my wife told me not to do it. My beautiful wife of 52 years. She told me, I don't have a good feeling about it. I think you should stay in Virginia. Well, did I ever learn a lesson? Men, listen to your spouse because women have an intuition that we don't have. And even though, I'm thinking she doesn't know anything about business. She's home raising kids and taking care of. So far, I'm the business guy. Boy, I'll tell you. Did I ever learn a lesson? But
Steve, I can relate to that. Sadly, my first wife passed away, but same thing. She didn't know the business, and the business was my little kingdom and my little empire, and I let her run the home and run me at the home, and I ran the business, and I didn't want any input. And I guarantee you, unlike Steve, because he's done well, I lost millions because I didn't listen to my wife. And she did. She came in and it actually made me mad. Like she came in minutes and said, here's what's wrong, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, and again, I was right and righteous. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And only in hindsight could I see that she just nailed it. Like she knew exactly what employees were problems. She knew where all the issues were. And I'm like, I just would not believe it. So that's a huge blind spot. Any relationship, there's people around you that are probably already speaking into your life and in your business. And you're potentially, I'm not saying you're all as stubborn as I was, but you're potentially refusing who God put in your life that is the most likely to give you some great advice. So, Renee. Oh, no.
So there's a great book by Pat Lencioni called The Ideal Team Player. He talks about how ideal employees are hungry, humble, and smart. And the smart is EQ, emotional intelligence. And so in fact, all of our interviews for employees, we always ask their references questions about hungry, humble, smart. We don't ever ask about job performance. We can figure that out. But if they're not hungry, humble, or smart, we don't want them. Which I say a little bit tongue in cheek because I look at this answer of questions like where do you get defensive and what are your blind spots? And I feel like God has put me through humble school about 8 times and I cannot graduate. I keep going back through that. So for me, it's humility. You know, being a military officer and now owning a company, like you get used to your way and yet without humility, I am blind and you know, I mean, the work hours, they surrounded us with a bunch of people from all different branches and services. And you're in this small group and you realize the people that think differently than me have got so much more to offer to me because I didn't understand the world from that point of view. So for me, it's been, as a leader, that's what we look for. But as a leader, I know that's what I need to work on too, is to value those opinions and to pull them out and not start a meeting by telling people, here's what I think. But what do you think? What do you think? You know, and then, okay, well, I was thinking this, but haven't heard that. I think we're going to do this. So for me, it's humble pie. And I'm not, I guess I wish I would get to the point where I didn't have to get reschooled on that, but it seems like that's my cross to bear is recycled through humble school. So,
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that, again, I've never done well, but I'm learning now, especially here working at a church, is how to ask questions. And I'm still not good at it, but like instead of trying to fix everybody, and it's really hard at a church because everybody needs fixing. So I feel like it's my job to help fix everybody, and it never works. Like never. And the same thing when I had a staff, it was like, it wasn't that I would cared about them, if I'm being honest. I just wanted to get past the situation quickly so we can move on. So rather than training or asking questions or being curious, I would just fix it for them and move on. And that's a huge, I mean, that might not be a blind spot, but it was for me because I thought I was doing a good thing by helping them, but I was really just wanting to fix it so it wouldn't be a burden for me to carry later. When in fact, I was just destroying left and right people to the point where they came to me for everything. And then I'm complaining, why do they come to me for everything? Well, it's because it's the culture that I created mainly out of impatience. And again, in church world, it's easy to, because I get to meet with a lot of people, it's easy to go into fix-it mode instead of listening mode. And it's funny, I had a situation where somebody that I would normally, that I work with a bit, that I normally would fix, and I really purposed not to fix them in that moment, and I listened. I was like digging into my palm because I was just trying so hard to listen. And I did, and I listened for an hour, and it was a lady that left, and I was like, that was the biggest waste of time. I could have fixed that in 10 minutes. And I sat there for an hour. And 2 days later, the coolest thing happened. She contacted me and said, hey, you know what? Thank you so much for helping me. And here's the outcome of that conversation. And in hindsight, I would have probably spent another couple of hours in this situation. And because I just listened and she worked it out herself, and I didn't say anything. It's like, there's this old story, I don't even know if it's true, but it's funny, where in the 1970s, New York, not Wall Street, but advertising, what's the advertising? Madison Avenue. Guy comes back from a martini lunch, an advertising exec, and he's pretty loopy. And his secretary goes, Procter & Gamble is here to meet with you for your 2 o'clock. And he's like, I don't have a 2 o'clock with Procter & Gamble. And he was so drunk that he couldn't say anything. So he sat there for an hour and a half with the client, didn't say a word. And at the end, the client said, you're hired. We've met with 3 advertising agencies and you're the only one that gets us. So if one of your blind spots is talking too much and fixing too much, just keep your mouth shut. It's amazing. So any other feedback or comments before we jump to tables? All right, so this is the time to really think hard about what's going on inside of you. Be vulnerable and open. Your table leaders are going to lead you through this for the next half hour, 25 minutes, and then we'll come back and do a little prayer and wrap things up. So go ahead and jump to the tables.
Wanted to take some time to talk a little bit this morning about a topic that I feel is very closely correlated to blind spots and what we've been talking about, and that's the topic of worship. Question I'd like you to just consider as we start thinking about this is, what is the role of worship in my life? And by worship, I want to be clear. I don't just mean singing, singing songs in church. By worship, I mean adoration. I mean awe. I mean love and reverence and honor and veneration. What is the role of worship in my life? I asked Google what the role of worship in a believer's life ought to be, and the AI response was actually pretty good. He said, worship is the core focus of a Christian's life, serving to honor God, transform the believer's heart, and unify the church community. It's not just a weekly church event, but a whole life response of love, obedience, and reverence to God. I spent a lot of time this summer. My wife and I lead the Potters Players, and we had a summer showcase that was based on the Psalms, and we just spent all summer focusing on worshiping God kinetically through dance and singing and acting, all based on the Psalms. And at the same time, I was also reading First Chronicles and just reading about David. And I think David's secret, the reason that God elevated David to king and he led the entire nation of Israel, and why he was such a key figure, is because of his heart for worship. He was a worshiper. And because he was a worshiper, he led his entire nation into serving God and worshiping God, and took their eyes off of all of their enemies and focused on what was important. As we consider our lives as leaders, our lives as business owners and various areas of leadership we're in, what do you think are the dangers of leadership that is devoid of worship? Have you ever thought about that? A leader who's not a worshiper tends to be the one that feels like he needs to be worshiped. Because we all have this innate need for worship. But if we aren't the type of leaders who are worshipers, then we're going to be worshiping other things, and we're going to want people to worship us. But if we're worshipers, if our eyes are focused on the Lord, that helps to focus everyone else's eyes to the right place too. And it makes a huge difference, I believe, in our organizations and what we're doing. I've been given the privilege and the opportunity to lead this group in prayer, and I love it because I believe that prayer is a core element of leadership. But there's an acronym that many of you who grew up in church circles might have heard for how we pray, and it's the acronym ACTS. And it stands for Adoration, Confession, Thanksgiving, and Supplication. A lot of times prayer just ends up being asking God for things, supplication. But prayer that doesn't start in worship, that doesn't start in adoration and thanksgiving, and just focusing our hearts on a good Father who loves us, who is worthy of our praise, is not really prayer. It's not enough. It's not full. So we're going to spend a few minutes together just worshiping this morning, focusing our hearts on God. And worship and adoration are what God deserves. They're just because of who he is, they're what he needs. But they also serve a practical benefit for us. And we've been talking about blind spots today. And I think in the Bible, one of the greatest examples of blind spots was the Apostle Paul. As Saul, he thought he was serving God by dragging Christians out of their homes and throwing them in prison and trying to get them to blaspheme so he could stone them. That he was like, I'm all in, God, I'm your guy. Paul's blind spot got changed on the road to Damascus when Jesus showed up in all of his glory and this bright light that was so bright that Paul was blind for 3 days. But after 3 days, the scales fell off and Paul could see. Not just physically, he had a completely different change of perception. Our blind spots are the same. Looking at the earthly sun is a scary, dangerous thing to do, right? It'll cause you to go blind. But looking at the Son of God actually causes us to see better. The more time we spend focusing on the Lord, the clearer our vision becomes. And so, as we focus our hearts and focus our eyes, spend a little bit of time here as I play some music, thinking about, Lord, how can I just worship you better? And open my eyes. Is there any blind spot, anything that you want to make clear to me? Lord, just reveal that to me, because I don't want to be like Saul, going off and conquering the world, doing my own thing that is completely irrelevant and wrong. I want to have eyes to see what matters and what is of eternal significance.
The heart song singing out you. I remember the simplicity. Just to feel you here was everything. Stand by your beauty. This is my offering. Not for anything that I could pay. Just to honor you and bring you praise. Like the fragrance broken on the floor. May my worship be pure. There's no motive, there's no hidden God. Here's my all and I don't want it back. Like the fragrance broken on the floor. May my worship be pure. Find me like a child again. Before anything got in the way. Any dream or any accolade. You make it easy. Easy to breathe me. Not for anything that I could get. Just to honor you and bring you praise. Like the fragrance broken on the floor. May my May my worship be pure. Your faith, your grace, nothing in the way. What I love, this is all we want. This is only faith. It's all about you, all about you, and it's all about you, all about you, and it's all about you, all about you, and it's all about you. Yeah, all about you, all about you, and it's all about you, all about you, and it's all about you, all about you, and it's all about you. Not for anything that I could give. Just to honor you, like the faith that's broken on the floor. May my worship be pure. There's no motive, there's no hidden catch. Here's my all and I don't want it back. Like the fragrance broken on the floor. Let my worship be pure.
Jesus, it's all about you. Thank you for being worthy of our worship, our praise, our honor, our adoration. You alone are worthy. Thank you for helping us take our eyes off ourselves. Help us to hear you more clearly, to know you more intimately. To trust you more deeply. And to obey you more fully. We love you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mark. This is one of my favorite parts of Business for Life is watching you guys spend time connected to God. It's again fairly unique, if not completely unique to anything else, but it's so important that we keep doing this. We keep, not only learning, but inviting God into what you're learning so that he can guide you ultimately, in this case, through some of your blind spots. So, quick lightning round. I want to go around and spend a minute at each table and hear some of the feedback. Let's start with Mark.
Had a great discussion.
1 second, I have to get you a mic. Yeah. Jason's got the mic. Hustle, Jason, work through the crowd.
We should give you a round of applause.
Yeah. If anybody needs any computer services, talk to Jason afterwards. He'd be happy to come alongside and help your company with any computer needs. So thank you, Jason. He does this every month, but he's going to be leaving us. So if anybody else wants to take his job, starting in the new year, let me know. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, we had a great discussion about areas that are blind spots or things that make us defensive, and then just leaning into what how to deal with that. And I think the theme that kept coming up is hearing God. Lord, what do you want me to know? What's your perspective on this this thing I'm dealing with, or the emotions, or the situation? And I wanted to thank Rich too for just your testimony earlier. That was very encouraging to me. But that seems to be the theme of that God continually keeps calling me back to, is just come to me, ask me, bring me in, get my perspective on whatever it is. It'll all work better if I hear what he has to say rather than just trying to deal with it myself. And that was very much a theme that we had.
It's great. And again, we have a tendency to segment our lives and ask God for certain things, engage him for certain things, and then take on what we think we can take on. And for me, I know business was that thing. So thank you, Mark. Renee.
All righty. So Table 8 had a great discussion. We first heard from Ben over here, and we talked about how pretty much, a blind spot for him, but then also pretty much everybody is that, our ego kind of gets in the way. And that's when we get a little bit more defensive. We have limited feedback or absent feedback. And so, our egos are usually the thing that, that causes a lot of blind spots in our lives. And we heard from Alice, and she, talked about, an interview that she had, or an application process where she had to do an attribute test, and just getting feedback from those things where that feedback might be something that you're aware of or may not be. So getting feedback is great. And then Pitt talked about some trust, just having trust around people. Related to some of the testimonies that were given today, and how that sometimes can be hard, and could cause some blind spots in his business. Christopher, we heard, similar to what Mark was talking about, just trusting God and Jesus, because a blind spot that we have as a lot of business owners in this room is we want control. It's like we got ourselves to this prominent position of business owner, and so it's our little empire, as John says, and we just want to control it all. And then from Will, we spoke about some of the stuff that he's very self-aware of, his blind spots, but then just kind of putting people in the right places and trusting others. I kind of made this illustration I can share with everybody, but pretty much like our life is this window. Since we have a window guy at the table, it's 4 panes. You might live in the upper top right, and you can only see what's in front of you, right? That one directly to your right. It's important to find that firefighter, whether that be your wife, maybe a manager that you hire on to your company, somebody in your life that you can put at the opposite end that can watch the side that you can't see, right? We don't want a bunch of yesers in our corners. We don't want people to say, "Oh, you're always right," just because you're the business owner. Like, find that person that can, give you good, honest feedback to say, "Hey," challenge your thoughts, challenge, your goals and stuff. So that's pretty much what Table 8 spoke about.
Thank you. All right, Matt.
Renee. Well, a minute's going to be tough. We had a great conversation. I could probably talk for 30 minutes about all the different topics. General theme was that we have a tendency to put up walls, and it could be walls of preventing other people from seeing perceived weakness, or a wall, being an introvert, or whatever kind of wall you put up. And Jared had a really good observation that one of the biggest fears that we have in change is that we feel comfortable with the way we are right now, and we see the potential for where we could go, but there's the period of change where you kind of feel lost. And what we talked about was that's from being conditioned of trying to do things on your own too much, because you do get that kind of lost feeling when you try to do things on your own. But if you seek God first, he's going to take care of that part for you. He's going to guide you. He's going to walk with you. He doesn't give you the instructions and send you on your way. We also talked about seeking counsel from appropriate people. If you ask a stranger, you're not afraid of what their answer is going to be. You don't know them. They don't know you. If you ask somebody close to you, you ask your spouse, you ask a best friend, you're going to get a much more real answer. If you ask God, the person, who created you, who knows you the best, if you give it enough time, that's where you feel really, really vulnerable. And that's, at the end of the day, kind of what we ended up talking about as the piece that's missing a lot of times is the space to listen. We're very busy. We hop from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and we don't ever give ourselves time to process what happened. That's where a lot of the growth happens, is in that space. And I love, Mark, what you've been doing about at the end of this, where we have that time during the music. Sometimes I listen to the words and sometimes I reflect on what we talked about. But that gives you the space to kind of process and digest what was talked about. So I'll leave you with this. Wayne brought up James 1:19, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, be patient. Our natural reaction is to do the exact opposite of all of those. We're quick to talk, slow to listen, we're impatient, all those things. So really, really good discussion.
Thank you. Chad.
Thank you, sir. All right, so it seems like a very similar theme is with each table. One of our biggest things we talked about was always wanting to be right? Always wanting to be right. In communication, humility to be able to listen and understand what people are saying that might be, one of your shortcomings or one of your blind spots, or, and don't just think that you're always going to be right no matter what they say, and just, start an argument. But also trying to avoid conflict is something that I think a few of us talked about at this room or at this table, avoiding conflict, whether it's with a spouse or an employee or, a coworker. For me, patience, but avoiding conflict, as opposed to being open and listening and understanding and trying to come to a common denominator, I think was something we talked about. And I like that last verse you shared, Matt. Or
Great.
Wayne, I guess, in this verse.
It's interesting how we avoid conflict and we don't call it conflict when it's in us. And then we start judging people because we don't call it conflict, but we're dealing with our own internal conflict, and we don't want to deal with ourselves, let alone a lot of people around us. So that's really, really important. Renee.
Yeah, so we had a lot of meat here. The blind spots, being offended early, not recognizing the effect of our actions on the rest of our family sometimes. I'm right, you're wrong. The defensiveness threshold that trips up our best intentions. Communications while under stress, and the desire for truth. And then we talked a little bit more about, it seems like there are times when God strips away the things from us, a job or a position or whatever, and that to help reveal the things that are true. But in our relationships, we still need to respond with grace. Truth is way, way less important than the relationship and the grace. And there's a tension there, right? Because you don't want to do something stupid that's not, or agree with something that's not true. But how do you respond? What's your attitude? How do you treat that other person in order to bring them alongside and move forward together. So
It's good.
that's the lightning round version of a lot
Great.
of good meat here.
I think the one book I would challenge you all to read, which is the best leadership book. It's not a leadership book, but it's called Unoffendable by Brant Hansen. If you want to get your world rocked, read that book, because if you could choose to be unoffendable as a leader, you will grow so rapidly, not only as a leader, but as a spouse and in family. Highly recommend the book. I think I have to read it every year because it's so meaty and most people really struggle with it because it's the true gospel. But what we're talking about here is truly living an unoffendable life. So, Brian. Brant Hansen. Yep.
All right. Yeah. A lot of consistency at the tables, which is great. I think I can just see God affirming that in all our lives. So, following up on one of the big questions of who are we inviting to speak into our lives to really coach us? And are we willing to hear it? Are you willing to hear it, not defend yourself in the moment and just meditate on it? And is it coming from a good place of someone who really wants to see you excel? So that's a question for all of us, is are we inviting those people into our lives, and are we actually listening to them and taking that? Are we doing an acknowledgement of our own limitations, which is super humbling? Speaking for myself, trying to grow a business and, wearing a lot of hats over the years and actually having to say, you know what, some of these roles, like, I'm actually not that great at, and I should stop pretending or feeling like I have to defend that and actually find the people that are so much better than I am, and how freeing that actually is. But you have to get through the pride, and as God guides you through that humility and humble university, right? It's like, I want to graduate from that, so that's a lot of it. And just Mark, thank you as always for guiding us through the prayer time. It's the things that just popped into my mind, and those are the things that I want to meditate on. And I heard, God saying that He is for me, not against me. And I know that. I know the scriptural knowledge of that, but I believe God is asking me that question or giving me that statement because do I really believe that? Do I believe that He's withholding? And so if I want to dig in deeper to my relationship, it's, can I acknowledge that God is giving us the keys of the kingdom, and He's shown that through Jesus. He's giving us His most valuable resource. So why are we scared to ask for these lesser things when He's giving us the most of what He could possibly offer and the freedom in that?
Thank you. It's amazing. Personally, in the last year, being on staff here and having peers, for 40 years, I didn't have a peer. And I thought I was a really good team player. And Landon is one of my peers now, so he can tell you, I generally am not a team player because I thought I was, because I created the team and then I ruled the team, but I never played well. And that's another blind spot for you all as leaders to consider. Are you truly a part of your team, or are you dictating to the team? And they're all nodding their heads going, yeah, you're a great team player, because they have to. So just a thought, not a sermon.
So table.
It's not gonna, it's just for the, yeah. No, hold it up, because they're gonna hear you online.
So table 3 heartily agrees that we routinely have all of these blind spots, and it's self-limiting. Some of the things that make this difficult to change are complexity, and some of the unique things that I see, having just moved into the DMV, that government employment equals secular. So we have to really think about how we're going to approach our business community, because there's some serious challenges there. And I think that there's a real opportunity for us to really change the community even further. And but we've got to figure some of these out. And so these are the challenges that I think that are going to be, define what we can become over time.
Thank you. Tim.
So we had some awesome conversation. It went from challenges with employees and some of the blind spots that are involved with leadership and sending emails, and sometimes those emails aren't construed the way we meant them to be, and so how that plays into some of the blind spots we have. We talked about being solopreneurs and discussions with our spouse so that we can see our business in a different potential light. We talked about blind spots that we have with a corporate acquisition, and when leadership is turned upside down and people that you counted on for many years are all of a sudden not there. So we just had a lot of great conversation. I think, as a number of tables have said, though, most of it comes back to humility and not graduating from Humility University, but the continual challenge of how we humble ourselves. And that's, to me, what I got out of it is the key to how we handle those challenges and difficulties is through humbling ourselves. So.
Yeah. And that's worth a deep dive for each of you. Like, we use the word humble. I remember my wife asked me a few months ago, do you think you have any pride issues? And I'm like, no, absolutely. I said it so fast and I was serious. And I'm like, man, that was a quick response. So, hi, I'm John. I have pride issues.
Well, our table, this is probably one of the best tables I've been at this whole year. And it was like opening up Pandora's box for us. We went deep and we decided that we came up with how are we going to tell everybody what we talked about? And we decided that wherever we go, there we are. Have you ever heard that expression? And it's what we struggle with in our personal life, we take into our business life. And we talked about many of the same topics that you guys did. And you guys were a blessing today. Thank you.
And those guys back there, we're all in the same choral group. So if you want to come out tonight and watch us sing.
Oh, choral? Where are you guys singing?
The bald guys.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, you guys are slow on the uptake. Come on. All right, well, we're a few minutes past 10, and if anybody needs to go, feel free. But I wanted to just do one more thing. I want to invite Suzanne up and have her share. She's going to be our speaker next month, and you won't want to miss it. You want to invite as many friends as possible because it's going to be an awesome event in September 15th.
Set this right here. If I were to ask you what you think of the word branding, what comes to mind for you?
Alice.
Oh, I love that answer. So, and tell us why you said that. Is that from Chick-fil-A? What? Yeah, what? Oh, branding. You know what? I was thinking of Chick-fil-A because my mind is. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's funny. That kind of branding was not the kind of branding I had in mind. I was thinking maybe you would say logos or websites or maybe a marketing campaign. Well, we're going to talk about something a little deeper. We're going to define branding as how people actually view your company. My company, I'm Suzanne Savant, and my company is Distillery Creative Marketing Group. And we are a group of creatives that distill our clients' messaging to reach their target audience. And next month, I have the privilege of sharing with you principles of branding. And we're going to take it a little deeper. We're going to look at branding as Christ would. What does that look like for your business? I'm going to give you the chance to look at different concepts. We're going to look at Christian principles that you might be actually using in your daily life, but you maybe have not considered how to extend that to your business. We're going to look at one of the really talked about entrepreneurs right now, Will Guidaro. I don't know if you know of him. He's written a best-selling book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And he's a very successful guy, and we're going to look at some of his principles. We're going to have great discussion next month, and you're going to walk away next month with things that you can actually do, start right away to improve your corporate branding. And I look forward to sharing that with you next month.
Okay, a couple of things. Another shameless plug for Activate. A lot of you last semester did the program. It's something we offer here at the church. If you don't know it, the Business for Life is an Activate class for business owners, because ultimately a lot of the things we discuss here we cover in Activate. It's really meant to allow you to hear God in ways maybe you haven't heard before, open up your heart to lead you in a direction that might be different than where you are, because I think somebody mentioned it, Matt, at your table. I think sometimes we're just afraid to ask God because he might tell us something that we know we're supposed to do, but we're afraid to ask. So part of Activate is just learning how to hear God and take the direction that he wants you to take. So it starts in September 13th. We have classes Sunday morning, Monday night for women, Tuesday night for men, and Wednesday night online. Rich did it online all the way from Fairfax. So we have people all over doing it. So feel free to promote it. And the QR code right there is the registration. So feel free to register or promote it amongst your friends. And lastly, if you didn't grab one, this is an updated directory of everybody that has come. So this, the one in your notebook is probably old, so grab one if you don't have one, if you didn't get it when you came in. I believe that is it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this in prayer. I'm sorry I kept you a few minutes late, but thank you again all for coming. Lord, what a great morning again. I thank you for showing up like you always do. I thank you for opening the hearts of all these business people to understand where they may be believing lies about themselves. They may be speaking those lies in self-protection because of the blind spots they may have. So I pray that they leave here today emboldened to ask questions of the people that are closest to them about how they can be more humble, truly, and how they can advance in their heart to another level of relationship, Lord, not only with you, but with those people that they have the most influence over. So anoint each of them as they leave and change their lives as you want them to. And I thank you and praise you for what you're going to do in every single person here. And I pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.